Good evening and welcome to our COVID-19 update program. I'm Neo Taigwe sitting for your regular host. Our headlines. The federal government directs all civil servants in the low cadre to resume work from Monday. Today, a significant date in the COVID-19 pandemic era as United Nations marks Global Hand Washing Day. And France reports more than 30,000 new coronavirus infections today. The Presidential Task Force Chairman on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, says Nigeria is beginning to flatten the curve of COVID-19, but all efforts must be achieved through more adherence to safety protocols. He was speaking at the routine briefing in Abuja, where he explained that more needs to be done if we must avoid a second wave in Nigeria.
Only the FCT and Lagos have achieved the targets of testing 1% of its population, followed by 3 states that have crossed 50%. And these states are Plateau, Gombe, and River states. 26 other states are yet to measure up to 25% of the population, up to 25% of 1%, because the target is to test at least 1% of the population of every subnational jurisdiction. This is considered a serious problem, which is further compounded by the increasing general apathy and disbelief among the risk or about the risk of COVID-19 in Nigeria. After a careful review of the national response, the Presidential Task Force believes that while recent numbers point to a likely flattening of the curve, consistent with emerging epidemic control, Nigeria is not yet ready for full reopening of the economy. It has accordingly recommended, and Mr. President has approved, the following. 1, that Nigeria further relaxes the restrictions in the 3rd phase of the response while maintaining key limitations to curb the risk of a spike in cases. The major changes proposed by the Presidential Task Force are as follows. 1, gradual and safe reopening of schools and the NYSC camps. 2, recommencing of sporting leagues, in particular all outdoor activities such as football. 3, sustaining the midnight to 4 a.m. curfew or movement nationwide. And 4, removal of the limitation on civil servants allowed to come back to work. In this particular area, the segment of the civil service that had hitherto not been allowed to come back to work are now, with effect from Monday, allowed to come back to work.
And after about 6 months of being closed down to COVID-19 lockdown, the National Youth Service core orientation camps across Nigeria will reopen very soon. Good news was revealed today on the Twitter page of the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, that will be October 15. Mr. Dare tweeted that the federal government has approved the reopening of the camps from Tuesday, November 10. NYC members will be returning to camps soon. And the Kaduna State government has directed all primary and secondary schools in the state to fully reopen from Monday, October 18. Schools were shut down in March to combat the spread of COVID-19, and only final year students were since allowed to return for their exit exams in September. At a news conference, the Commissioner for Education in Kaduna State, Mr. Ashil Mohammed, says the reopening of schools is based on the fact that government is satisfied with all the safety measures that have been put in place.
From the 18th of this month, Our SS2 students will come back to classes, will come back to school on the 18th for the boarding students, on the 19th for the day schools. All SS2 students, all JS2 students, all primary 6 students will come back to school. We encourage parents to use and arrange communal bus that will pick their children from their own communities to schools. This is very important to us because we want to reduce community transmission of this disease. I'm happy you are all very much aware that COVID-19 spread is reducing, and we want to keep the tempo. We want to also continue monitoring. By so doing, we are ensuring that in every school there is going to be a standard committee comprising the school-based management committee or member of the school management committee of that school, the members, some members of staff, members of from the community around, and students.
From Kaduna, let's go back to that briefing of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. It says the process of relaxing the phase 3 of the response hasn't concluded with consent from the President. The National Coordinator of the Task Force, Dr. Sani Aliyu, explained that some of the sectors of the economy are now opened up with advice for strict compliance with COVID-19.
The lifting of restriction on outdoor sporting activities, including football, is in line with earlier consultations with the Federal Ministry of Youth, Sports Development and the NCDC. However, this is limited to the actual sports itself, not with mass gatherings. So in this regard, mass gatherings, including at sports events, is still restricted.
As the world commemorates World Hand Washing Day, health experts in Yobe State say hand washing is one of the best ways to remove germs and prevent the spread of the infectious diseases. They told Channels Television's correspondent that frequent washing of hands a day can prevent up to 80% of common infectious diseases. Now, you would recall that hand washing and the use of sanitizers is one of the measures in the safety protocols of COVID-19.
October 15 every year is globally commemorated as World Hand Washing Day to create awareness and understanding of the importance of hand washing with soap to prevent spread of infectious diseases. In Nigeria, hand washing is commonly observed at schools or during ablution by some faiths. Until the outbreak of the coronavirus, when the federal government gave directive on mandatory hand washing to curb the spread of the virus.
Before the coming of COVID-19, I do wash my hands 10 times, I can say. But with the COVID-19 pandemic around the globe, I cannot even tell you how frequent I wash my hands. I wash my hands so frequently to make sure that I maintain a good personal hygiene.
Since the arrival of COVID-19, it has been acknowledged worldwide that it is real. So I continuously observing washing my hands. At the same time, I tell my family members to be washing their hands frequently, not necessarily until when they start eating food. I make it a point of duty in the sense that when they touched a plate, they must wash their hands. When they start eating, they must wash their hands. After eating, they must wash their hands.
Acknowledging the facts, however, health experts explain that continuous hand washing practice has assisted in reducing the spread of coronavirus, among other infectious diseases.
Hand washing is very, very significant because we use our hand for day-to-day activities, and the germ constitute about 80% of bacterial or germs or viruses in our hand, and that is why it's very, very important that we wash our hand in any situation we find ourselves, or any procedure that you carry out. You have to wash your hand to prevent the infection from getting into your system.
The coronavirus pandemic has taught many lessons on basic hygiene, especially regular hand washing.
And staying with that matter of staying healthy as the world celebrates the Hand Washing Day, a community in Kiyawa local government area of Jigawa State has adopted hand washing as a habit to COVID-19 and other related diseases. According to the members of Tanoke community, they have noticed a significant reduction in gastrointestinal related diseases in the community. Our correspondent in Jigawa, Sadiq Iliasu, visited the community and now reports.
Since the outbreak of the coronavirus in Jigawa State, the state government has made it compulsory for residents to adhere to all COVID-19 protocols, which includes hand washing, wearing of face masks, and observing social distancing as the key preventive measures. On a daily basis, this manually operated public tap serves as a source of potable water to both young and old in Tanoke community, Kiyawa local government area of the state. In this community, however, hand washing is now a habit in every household with more than one source to clean water.
We recommend that that mother should wash her hand. When somebody goes to the toilet, they should wash their hands properly. When they clean the child, they should wash their hands properly. Before they prepare meals, they should wash their hands. The reason is this just basic practice can go a long way in keeping those children, particularly the children that are under 5 years old, from infectious disease.
And as the world celebrates Hand Washing Day, expectations are high that government at all levels will ensure that water is made available not only to curb the spread of COVID-19, but other diseases.
And now we've been joined on the COVID-19 update program by Dr. Doyin Odubanjo, the Executive Secretary, Nigeria Academy of Science. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Odubanjo.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start by asking, are you one of those who's very excited that the PTF says a lot of other activities can open up, especially active sports?
Well, it keeps people, I must say that it's a two-sided coin. On one hand, I think it's been harsh times for many. So something like sports tends to give some lightening of the mood. It's good for mental health, I must say. It's good to make everybody or many people happy once again, despite the harsh environment that we found ourselves in with COVID-19 inclusive. However, of course, we get worried the more we open up, especially with the background of some of the challenges we still have, people not complying with the non-pharmaceutical interventions that we have, like social distancing, wearing face masks, and of course also not being able to still conquer our testing challenges as we should. So on that background, you have a problem, but again, we actually need things to make people happier these days.
So when you say we need things to make people happier these days, a lot of people would say that this pandemic or this disease, COVID-19, it's not really as dangerous as it was put out there at the beginning of at the height of the pandemic. So let's throw caution to the wind, and opening up more areas is again dampening that, or more like reducing that sense of caution that used to be in the air. Are you not worried?
Not worry would not be the word. But I'm one of those who had felt that we got it wrong from the get-go, and I'm not saying Nigeria alone. I'm saying the whole country, the whole world basically got it wrong from the get-go. We created a double pandemic. We created a pandemic of a coronavirus, and we created a pandemic of time. And I think that was a major problem. So we're settling down to reality, which is that the virus not everything. Like you said earlier on, perhaps not as dangerous also as we thought it to be. And indeed, we now are faced with the reality, whether we like it or not, that we must balance what we do with also sustaining life and livelihoods. Okay, and so we shouldn't be worried. We should be cautious, however. So the issue is that we don't want to throw caution to the wind. However, we also don't want to be paralyzed with fear and not be able to move on and begin to find a way to live despite the virus being around.
Okay, let's look at exactly some of these things that the PTA have talked about. Okay, so yes, approval has been given for the reopening of the contact sports, especially football, and they said it's actually the participatory side of it, not the spectator side of it. But if we move from there, we'll look at the fact that the orientation camps, the National Youth Service Corps orientation camps, are opening up real soon. Should parents be worried, and what cautionary measures should they take?
Well, I think they should follow what we've always been told to follow. And at the same time, we also hope that the government opening up the orientation camps will put in the precautions that are necessary. So the camps, as we knew them, were not places you wanted to be at, even under normal circumstances. So I can still remember what the toilets and things looked like, and it scarred me, as it were. So you sure hope that that's not the kind of orientation camp we're coming or asking people to go back to. Actually, those days should be gone for good. Those are the lessons we should have learned from COVID. That if you had certain standards that are not as low as what we had, we would have done a lot better, no matter the disease that seems to show up anywhere. So hygiene is critical. And if we don't have those kinds of facilities, then there's no point opening of anything. Okay, no point asking people to go for orientation and all of that, because we're only endangering them. But if we can, or we should actually, not if we can, it's compulsory, that we must put in the right facilities and ensure the right precautions for the people to reassemble or assemble at the orientation camps next month.
Well, how significant would you say this directives or these actions of the federal government have been, considering that it's on a day like today, Global Hand Washing Day, that these announcements were made?
I think what we haven't put out there strongly enough, and I think what we are misleadingly telling people largely is that things are back to normal. What I'm not hearing clearly enough is that, yes, we are opening up the course we need to open up. However, we want people to be cautious. In fact, better still, we want this kind of behavior to become a lifestyle, not because of COVID-19 alone, but just like your report rightly said, you will prevent many other diseases, even inadvertently, if you did this thing. So when we went through the Ebola thing in 2014, we talked about this things. We talked about the need for running water. We talked about, hand washing and that. But then we came to 2020 and we're struggling to get things in place. So what we want is that this becomes normal for us. We get the running water and people can wash their hands and do wash their hands as a habit, whether there's a pandemic or not. So that is what we need to put out, that kind of emphasis to say, look, even if you believe that COVID-19 is gone, there are other diseases, and it's important that we make this a part of our lives forever.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Doyin Odubanjo, Executive Secretary, Nigeria Academy of Science. Thank you for sharing with us this evening.
Thank you.
And COVID-19 Studios will be back in a moment to look at another side of it, the World Hand Washing Day. We'll be looking at that. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us. Today is the World Hand Washing Day. It's a very significant day, especially in the times we're in, where one of the major safety protocols within the pandemic is the need to wash your hands. Experts in Yobe say that hand washing is one of the best ways to remove germs and prevent the spread of infectious diseases. Now, all of that's happening around the world, but in the country Nigeria, there are other things that seem to be pressing even in the face of this that have to do with water. We're joined today by the Honorable Minister for Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Adamu.
Thank you very much for having me.
And happy Hand Washing Day.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a quick
Hand hygiene for all.
Indeed. So how many times did you wash your hands today?
Oh, I can't say it. Several times.
It's good to know. Let's get down to this. Now, the world is commemorating the Hand Washing Day. And indeed, in states like Yobe, state experts have told the people that hand washing would at least ensure that 80% of germs are kept off their hands if they wash their hands as often as possible. But how do we even begin to look at washing your hands as often as possible when a lot of those who are considered the common man don't have water?
Yeah, it's quite a bit of a challenge, really. But let me say that this global hand washing has been going on for several years. It's an annual event, but this year is a bit special in the sense that we have the COVID-19 pandemic, and there is a stronger awareness now about the need to wash your hands. But yes, washing hands with running water is a challenge, and I feel that it's a wake-up call for us because, honestly, just like our health system has been a bit inefficient, so also the delivery of water supply. And the only thing we can say is that going forward, we hope that lessons have been learned, and that this is a wake-up call for all of us that are involved in the water sector to really stop paying lip service to water supply and make sure that we do the necessary investment to ensure that we meet the Sustainable Development Goals of ensuring that 100% of the citizenry has access to water, to clean water, potable water.
I mean, is it not, won't you call it an irony that a nation surrounded by a lot of water has the bulk of its citizens without constant running water? When you say we should stop playing lip service and get to investing more in this, what is it that's not being done right in all this while?
Well, the truth of the matter is that Nigeria is not a water-scarce country. Our water resources are adequate for the people. We have about 1,800 cubic meters per capita per year, whereas the minimum threshold is 1,000 cubic meters per capita per year. So we always have twice the threshold. Well, what has been the challenge is that we've not been able to invest over the years adequately in the provision of water supply and distributing it equitably. So, water, especially water supply, is a very expensive venture. All water projects are very expensive, time-consuming, but also they need to be sustained. You would have noticed that in the last 40, 50 years, a lot of investment has been has been made, especially if you look at municipal water supply projects. But they have not been maintained or they have not been sustained. And because of growth of population, we need to be moving, investing more in water supply commensurate with the rise of the population, and that hasn't been happening. So that's why you have this serious challenge. And over the last few years, our message here from the Federal Ministry of Water Resources has always been that states should learn to invest more, first of all, to prioritize water, make it, a big political priority, and then also go forward to be investing the necessary resources to provide water. It's a continuous thing. You cannot have a snapshot and say that you're going to provide over a year or two. The population keeps rising, and you just have to keep going and do what you can, and subsequent governments can come and continue with what they're doing. But that has been lacking. There hasn't been sufficient investment in the sector in the last 20, 30 years, unfortunately.
But then if you say there's not been enough investment in us in the last 20, 30, 40 years, that means almost all the previous governments should have to face the law, because if they've not invested that much and then every year there are budgets for water resources, what happened to all that funding?
The budget is just not enough. We have 200 million people in Nigeria. Okay, even 20 years, 30 years, probably 160 million people. The investment is not commensurate with the level of the size of the population. And that's what we're saying. And there's been no prioritization. A lot of money has been spent building airports, dualizing roads, and so on. But the basic building blocks of life, of which water is of paramount importance, have not been given the due attention. So we need to go back to the basics and ensure that those basic building blocks, of which water is probably number one or number two after air, which is free anyway, we have to invest, and there's just no other way around it. The investment has to be more, has to be consistent and commensurate with the population, because after all, the amount of water you supply is dependent on the population. The common denominator is the population. You are serving a population, so you need to know. You need to plan so that as your population is growing, your services, the investment you are making is commensurate with that growth in population, so that there will always be adequate provision for the people.
You know, I like the fact that you started out by saying there's no lack of water in Nigeria for its citizens, and then you now talk about having to plan to ensure that as your population grows, there's still water for them. So let's put the two of them together. There's no lack of water for the Nigerian citizens, but you have to plan to ensure that as the population grows, there's water for them. What is missing in here, and how is it that we've not been planning?
Is the planning and the investment. Even after planning, if you don't invest the required resources, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to go far. You can see we've just had a study recently. Like even the existing water schemes that we have in the country, they are operating at between 35 and 40% installed capacity. But like I said, the key thing is the investment. Even though investment is being made, but it is not commensurate with the level of the population growth. With the people, cities are expanding, the services are not being extended to new areas, and even the existing schemes are not operating at maximum or optimal capacity. So those are the issues we're saying. We need to invest. There are lots of issues with the water sector. There's capacity building issue. There's just so much. Even governance issues, because many state water agencies are basically operating at a loss. They can't even recover their costs. And then the people themselves, the consumers, sometimes are not paying the charges that they need to pay. So it's a vicious cycle. But I also understand consumers will not pay if the services are not efficient. And therefore, we need to first invest heavily in the sector, improve the services, and then I'm sure the people will come back to appreciate what is being done and pay for the service. But if it's epileptic, I can understand the apprehension and the apathy of consumers to pay.
Let's look at this matter of paying for water and investing in water. Is that the basis for the new water bill for the National Assembly?
The water bill is not a new thing. It's just a combination, an attempt to bring in 4 existing laws that exist that are governing the water sector currently: the Water Resources Act 2004, the National Water Resources Institute Act, the River Basin Development Authority Act, and the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency Act into one statute instead of 4 fragmented laws. The experts felt that way back in 2008 suggested that all these laws should be brought into one statute. And that's just what we've been trying to do. There are just 3 additional things in that bill that are quite important that we felt we needed to modify or update the laws as it were. One, to empower the citizenry, to ensure so that the citizens can participate and have a say in how the water resources are developed within their catchment. Number 2, we thought there is also a need to improve our irrigation management system, and therefore there is a provision to empower farmers, irrigation farmers, to be able to set up water user associations, collect the water tariff that is supposed to go to government. Maybe a portion of it can be collected by them to be used to maintain
secondary and tertiary irrigation infrastructure, while the government holds on and maintains the main, like the dam itself and the main canals. And thirdly, there is a provision of a WASH fund, Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Fund in that bill. And the idea is to find a way to garner more resources that state governments can now leverage on to be able to invest, to use it to invest in more water supply and sanitation projects, so that we can kind of support their efforts towards meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. Bear in mind that the federal government has no business with providing water in the taps for people, of municipal water schemes, or even rural schemes for that matter. It's primarily a matter for state governments and local governments. But of course, the federal government has been intervening in every way possible. And even under our new National Water Resources Policy, the federal government is committed, is ready to commit 30% contribution to states that are willing, that want to invest in urban water supply schemes, and up to 50% for rural water schemes. So the federal government provides intervention, but essentially the day-to-day operations of providing water on a regular basis or through the water agencies is a responsibility for states and maybe local authorities. So what we're doing in that bill, because we realize that states have not been investing, some of them not because they don't want to, but because they really have, they don't have the resources, they have budgetary constraints. So the bill seeks to create a WASH fund, which federal government will be mandated to make contributions, the states will make contributions, and we can even get where the law allows for the fund to source resources from international agencies and donors and so on, that can now be available for state governments to tap into and be able to invest in water supply and sanitation projects. So basically those are the three things. Other than that, everything that is in the Water Resources Bill is already existing within these 4 laws, and there is nothing new that we are putting there.
Honourable Minister, there's this part, this bill has been controversial. We've had a lot of arguments and kickbacks as regards this bill. One of the issues is that there is the allegation that the bill seeks to, I want to read it exactly here, to more like give a lot of powers to the federal government to control the water resources, absolute control of the country's water resources to the federal government. But you just said here that the part of what the bill is meant to achieve is to allow the states to develop the water resources within their catchment areas. But in that bill, it says that the minister is meant to, say here, it states that the minister shall chair the management of the country's water resources. Please break it down for us.
I don't know what bill you are reading. That is not what our bill says. In any case, the question of custodianship of the water resources of the country is settled in the Constitution. Item 64, Schedule 2 of the exclusive list, vests the responsibility for managing the water resources that transcend beyond states. That is, rivers that cross beyond the boundaries of one state will be managed by the federal government. That is settled. And that is the same thing that is happening with federal highways, and that is the same thing that is happening with our airspace. So there is nothing that's, there is no issue there as far as the Constitution is concerned. Any water body that crosses more than one state, it's the responsibility of the federal government to manage it. It's in the Constitution. So there is nothing wrong with, there is nothing that is unusual about it. Other things that have been said, people are just saying what they want. I don't know, this bill, this version that you're talking about, I don't know it. There's nothing in our bill that says anything like that. So there's nothing like a power grab. The laws are existing. Everybody that has doubt should go and read the existing Water Resources Act 2004. It is very clear and unambiguous. And the bill, the law, the Water Resources Act says every Nigerian has a right to water. Every Nigerian citizen is protected. And the other issue is that if the federal government is not controlling the water resources that cross that cross boundaries of states, then the communities downstream are not protected, because one example I keep making is River Niger comes in from comes into Nigeria through Kebbi State. River Benue comes in through Adamawa State. If any of these two states, without a federal government regulation, if any of these two states decides to put a dam on any of those rivers, nobody can stop them. And what do you think will be the impact downstream? What will be the impact in Lokoja? What will be the impact in the Niger Delta? So this law, as it is, the Water Resources Act 2004, which is also being incorporated into the new bill, is protecting communities downstream all the way to the Niger Delta.
Right,
without that, any state can commandeer a portion of the river within its boundaries and say that this is our own territory, and they can now set up maybe even industries that are discharging pollutants into the river. And this water, can you stop it from going downstream? If there is an industrial zone in Lokoja, and they are discharging effluent and poison into the river Niger, can you stop the water flowing to Delta State, or can you stop it reaching the bifurcation into the other rivers, into the Niger Delta? You can't stop it. And that is why there has to be an umpire, a big brother, to coordinate this. And that issue is settled. Those that prepared our constitution understood that fact, and that is how they made it. So there is nothing like power grab. There is nothing about taking 1 inch of the river banks. That is not true. It's all a fabrication. There is nothing like that. These laws are existing, and everybody should go and read them.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Minister for Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. Thank you this evening. We hope the next time we have you here to celebrate the Hand Washing Day, the Global Hand Washing Day, every home would have running water and they can wash their hands even as we speak.
I hope so too. We look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And as the world celebrates the Global Hand Washing Day, a community resident of Zamfara State are asking the government at all levels to do more in providing potable water. Our correspondent spoke with the resident in Gusau, the state capital.
In Zamfara State, Nigeria's northwest region, residents are asking both the federal and state government to provide potable water to citizens, especially communities that lack access to clean water. They say this idea will encourage citizens to imbibe the culture of regular hand washing, which is one of the ways of curtailing the spread of infectious diseases. The commemoration of this year's World Hand Washing Day is unique in its own way, with the outbreak of the coronavirus.
Is a day stipulated for the entire world that is actually being observed every year to sensitize and to educate the population about the importance of hand hygiene. Hand hygiene over decades or centuries ago has been known to man as the basic principle of infection prevention, because hands is a cultural medium for a lot of infections. So it's very, very important for a human being to know the importance of hand washing.
Hand washing day to me generally is me keeping myself clean always, not really occasionally, like the way you call it. So always I wash my hand when I'm out there. After work, coming back home, I also wash my hand to keep myself free from germs and diseases.
A public health expert, Manur Bature, says beyond the sensitization of people on the significance of the day, measures must be put in place for the provision of potable water.
But we can do ourselves a lot of good if we adopt prevention strategies, because that will go a long way in preventing, you understand, and reducing the burden of diseases in Nigeria, and will make us to have a population that is quite productive, and also it will make us to save a lot of resources that we can channel to other sectors for development.
Consistent washing of hands, no doubt, is one of the ways to hygienic living. Experts believe Nigerians should imbibe the culture to save cost and the pain of going to healthcare centers.
The Enugu State Governor Ifeanyi Gwanyi has inaugurated solar-powered water boreholes in some secondary schools in the Nsukka local government area. This is to address the water supply challenges in the schools. According to him, the boreholes will advance the realization of the Enugu State water sanitization and hygiene goals and stem the tide of hygiene-related infectious diseases, including COVID-19, and create a conducive learning environment. While at the event, he also inspected the renovated schools and hostel blocks with commitment to continuous upgrade of school facilities as well as the environment.
As our children return to school after the global COVID-19 break, we're happy that we're able to provide them with clean potable water, which is key to the implementation of the state school water sanitation and hygiene program and control of hygiene-related infectious disease, including COVID-19. With this water borehole and the solar-powered enable uninterrupted water supply, regular hand washing and other personal hygiene practices will go on sustainably in the school, and clean potable water will be available for all other reasons.
All right, speaking of the coronavirus countdown, where last night the Center for Disease Control, NCDC, reported 179 new cases from 12 states, and the FCT with Lagos leading recording about 116 cases, followed by Anambra with 20, and a few other states. The FCT 9, Oyo 9, Rivers 9, Delta 3, Nasarawa 3, Edo 2, Kaduna 2, Ogun 2, Plateau 2, Ekiti 1, and Osun 1. Rivers also recorded 9 new cases, and the South State sample collection has now been updated on the SCDC website, now bringing it to 10 states, and the FCT sites updated to test for COVID-19. The till date confirmed cases are nearing 70,000. 60,834 have been confirmed. 52,142 3 cases have been discharged, and 1,116 deaths have been recorded in 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. And France has recorded more than 30,000 new coronavirus infections in the country, up from 22,591 the day before. This comes as the World Health Organization throws its support behind touch restrictions to help save lives. Here's the global update.
London will enter a tighter COVID-19 lockdown from midnight on Friday as Prime Minister Boris Johnson seeks to tackle a swiftly accelerating second coronavirus wave. The respiratory pandemic, which emerged in China last year and has killed over 1 million people worldwide, is spreading in most parts of the United Kingdom, whose official death toll of 43,155 is the highest in Europe.
We must take firm and balanced decisions to keep this virus under control. This is the only way to protect lives and livelihoods. And we must act now. Delayed action means more deaths from COVID, it means more non-COVID deaths, and it means more economic pain later, because the virus comes down slower than it goes up.
Anger, though, is rising over the economic, social and health cost of the biggest curtailment of freedoms since World War II.
Don't think it will work, think it's a waste of time. It's affecting businesses, employment, and I do think there is a certain amount of herd immunity that's already happened, immunity, and I think we need to start getting to that point because it's not going to go away soon.
Poland's daily coronavirus cases soared over 8,000 for the first time on Thursday, hitting a record high for the second straight day, with the country likely to introduce new restrictions to try to curb the pandemic.
And this is how we end the show tonight. You can look at the website, channelstv.com, for some of the global and national figures. To follow channelstv.com for other stories as well. The safety protocols that have better understanding of what is required to stay alive. You could also check up our page for other stories like politics, business, and sport. Join us for a fresh package of the program tomorrow at 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Nelta Igwe.